Good afternoon, Karen. Good afternoon, legal AFers. Day 18 has concluded in Donald Trump's criminal trial. The whole day was the cross-examination of Michael Cohen. It is not complete. Cross-examination will continue next Monday. Recall, there is no trial on Friday. Tomorrow, Donald Trump had previously requested off so he could attend Barron's graduation. We'll see if Trump actually attends that or not, but that's what the pretext was for the request not to have trial on Friday. And so the day was just full of cross-examination. And then towards the end, there was some important scheduling issues, some important issues regarding a potential expert witness that the defense may intend to call next week. But Karen, I think we're moving very quickly towards summation here. And I think the jury, by all accounts, is going to get this case next week before Memorial Day. We may have a verdict next week. We will see. I want to get your thoughts if you think we could have a verdict as early as next week. So we should talk about how today started. You and I, Karen, this morning talked about our view that there was going to be a lot of MAGA Republicans from Congress showing up, and we named about 3. It turned out that there were at least about a dozen MAGA Republican members of Congress who showed up today, including Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and Anna Paulina Luna and Andy Biggs and MAGA Republican Congress member Ogles. And there's a whole list right there. Bob Good, Crane, Norman, Cloud. I mean, and so they were all there. They were dressed in their kind of Donald Trump uniforms. They've been coming in kind of dressing like Donald Trump. The whole thing is, just a very odd scene. You had Matt Gaetz post standing back and standing by Mr. President, a reference to Donald Trump telling the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. And Matt Gaetz is basically giving them a shout out right there. And then all these MAGA Republican Congress members admit that the reason that they're there, they said this during the press conference, was because they're not subject to the gag order. They all show up and then they attack the judge's daughter. They attack the witnesses who are on the stand. And as I mentioned, Karen, these members of Congress are subject to what's called the speech or debate clause immunity, even though I think that it wouldn't apply here. But they would not be required to testify if things were deemed legitimate legislative activity. And of course, I don't think this is legitimate legislative activity, but they would at least get to assert the immunity. And so it's just a way to circumvent this gag order, which just simply says that Donald Trump can attack like family members of the judge in the district attorney's office, that Trump can't attack witnesses, that he can't attack the jury, but this is how they're spending their time. And you and I talked about just what a weird message this must be sending to the jury, where Trump's family is really not showing up, although Eric showed up for at least a few days. And then you have all these MAGA Republican politicians showing up in a case where I think one of Donald Trump's defenses is that he wasn't doing the hush money payments because he cared about the election. He was doing it because he cared about his family, and that's why he was doing it. And I think this sends the exact opposite message. But here's our other scorecard from everything that happened on day 18. You had the cross-examination of Michael Cohen that continued throughout the day. Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, was the one who cross-examined Michael Cohen. We then had a ruling on a potential expert witness, Bradley Smith, who the defense wanted to call. I'll talk about that just in a little bit. Whether or not cross-examination will end soon, we believe it's going to end on Monday based on the representations made by Todd Blanche and Trump's legal team, probably Monday morning. And then we'll see if they end up calling this so-called expert on Monday. But it looks like closing arguments could even happen as early as Tuesday morning at this point. And Justice Merchan told the parties, be ready to give your closings on Tuesday, because it seems that that's what's going to happen. The question is Donald Trump going to testify? I don't think he's going to testify. I think that's pretty clear. But I think on Monday, we are going to get a declarative statement on that point that he will not be testifying, but we'll wait until Monday. I mean, look, by all accounts, Karen, I've been speaking to multiple people in the courtroom itself who have been talking about that this was, again, a very kind of disjointed cross-examination, at times a very boring cross-examination. There were moments where Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, may have scored a few points, but the buildup was so slow and boring that it somewhat harmed the impact of the points that he was trying to make. What I found odd is that, you had, I think, Anderson Cooper on CNN and Ari Melber on MSNBC. They had this one moment that they acted like was this bloodbath, Perry Mason moment. And all the people who I talked to in the court, and when I reviewed what actually went down, doesn't seem anything like that at all. And you know how important it is for us here to actually look at the transcripts themselves of what went down here. And, Adam Klasfeld was writing down everything that happened. And so Todd Blanche was asking Cohen a string of questions about Cohen receiving harassing phone calls, including from a 14-year-old. Cohen complained to Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, about it. And then Blanche is getting worked up, launching into an indignant speech with no apparent questions. We aren't asking about your beliefs. And then the prosecutor's objections got sustained. And so, I don't know, this was described as the big moment here. But Karen, I just wanted to set the framework of everything that was happening. Tell us what's going on.
So this is one of those times where, boy, do I wish I was in the courtroom, because, as you said, there were some people like Anderson Cooper who just describe it as extremely powerful and extremely effective in terms of this cross-examination. And look, the thing that's concerning is all they have to do is raise reasonable doubt. They don't have to declare Trump innocent. They don't have to in any way prove his innocence. They just have to create reasonable doubt, which is a really high standard, much higher than the preponderance of the evidence standard in civil cases. And apparently, according to many people in the courtroom, there was a couple of things that really landed today. Look, we knew this was going to be a bloodbath, and Michael Cohen has been prepped by the prosecution, I'm sure, for many, 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 many hours. And they knew who he was and know who he is. And we've talked about it, right? This is a redemption story of somebody who lied for Donald Trump, somebody who bullied for Donald Trump, somebody who committed crimes for Donald Trump. And so that is going to be difficult in terms of proving to the jury that he's credible. And luckily, most of what he says is corroborated, and most of it has the ring of truth. But there were a few punches that Todd Blanche landed today and really showed what a good defense attorney he is. Whether or not it's enough for reasonable doubt, that is up to the jury. But there were a couple things that I noticed that I didn't, love, frankly. The thing that they were able to say on cross-examination that frankly, kind of, I thought was a little bit, it's going to be hard for the jury to square away, whether this is reasonable doubt, I don't know. But is when apparently Michael Cohen was calling the federal, he was saying basically, I lied to the federal judge when I pled guilty. And we knew he was going to say that. He's always said that. And he said, look, I just did it because I wanted to get this over with. I wanted to just protect my wife. They threatened to prosecute my wife. And that makes sense, right? There's all sorts of studies, et cetera, that show that there are people who are innocent who actually plead guilty because for various reasons. They don't want to roll the dice. They don't want to risk it. So, I never was concerned by this line of questioning. However, I did not love what some of his answers were. He said, for example, he called federal Judge Pauley corrupt. I don't think that's good. He basically said the prosecutors were corrupt. The federal judge was corrupt. It's one thing to say, look, I pled guilty, even though I was innocent because, whatever, but to call prosecutors and a federal judge corrupt is not going to fly with the jury. And it kind of undermines Cohen's credibility. It makes him come across as defensive. So I don't love that. And the other thing that he talked about, that the area where I think they landed the biggest punch, at least according to the Anderson Coopers and the R.E. Melbers of the world, who were in the room and who saw it, was that Michael Cohen was made a phone call to Keith Schiller, who is Donald Trump's bodyguard, saying, I need to talk to Mr. Trump. And then there's a 90-second phone call between them. And that is the call that I think it was October 24th, 2016. And Michael Cohen has always held that out to be a very consequential phone conversation between him and Donald Trump, where he basically said, I paid the money, I paid Stormy. And this was like, this was the call that proves that Donald Trump was involved and Donald Trump knew, and they put the phone records in, et cetera. And what I guess the prosecution didn't prep Cohen, and look, he made thousands of phone calls and text messages. And, of course, he's not going to remember every single one, but it looks like he wasn't adequately prepped about this, which is there was a series of text messages with Schiller right before that call saying, I need to talk to Mr. Trump about somebody who's been bullying me, essentially harassing me. And Schiller said, okay, call me. And so that's the point that I guess landed kind of effectively, which is no, yeah, you talked to Schiller that day for 90 seconds, but it wasn't about the fact that you paid reports a 14-year-old to the Secret Service. So, it was that's the point that I think that they're going to seize upon the defense. They're going to say that it shows Michael Cohen's lying and he forgot that he had done this and that this is really what it's about. The one thing I can tell you that Ben, that the prosecution did, and that we've been saying this every day, this entire trial, they have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that these crimes occurred, without a doubt, in my opinion. There's no doubt that that falsification of business records occurred and that it was done for the purpose of hiding this payment for the election. The one area that we talked about that I felt Michael Cohen was necessary for was to tie this to Donald Trump. And I worry that if they don't believe him, if they think he's lying, there's going to be a charge. It's called the falsus in uno charge that the judge will give the jury that says for any witness, if you find that he lied about one thing, you can throw away his whole testimony and say he lied about everything. You don't have to believe him. And lying on the stand today can be fatal to a case. So that is the point that, again, I wasn't in the room. I don't know. I hear you, Ben, that other people said that it was not that big of a deal, or that it wasn't as powerful as some of these other people said it was, but I don't know. All I know is that it seems like Todd Blanche is landing some blows. Now, whether that rate rises to the level of reasonable doubt, it's still way too early. There's still more cross-examination, and then there's redirect. Okay, maybe there's an innocent or some other explanation for this. Like, don't forget, cross-examination is not open-ended questions. They're yes or no questions. Isn't it true this? Isn't it true that? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So there's short answers. On redirect, and if the witness is trying to say something, the defense attorney will dramatically say, Judge, direct him to answer the question, answer my question. Yes, no, yes, no. But as a prosecutor, I would take note of that, and I would stand up on redirect and be like, hey, remember when you were trying to answer and the defense attorney wouldn't let you? What were you trying to say? It comes out. There's no like, oh, answer the question, thing. It comes out. So let's see what redirect actually is. Let's see the explanations for this. And the hardest part about any criminal trial is it's like you feel great when this happens. You feel terrible when this happens. You feel great when this happens. You feel terrible when this happens. It's like a tennis match almost. And it's nail biting. And right now we are in one of those times where I'm biting my nails. But let's see, what happens on redirect, and summation is where it all comes together. And again, this might not rise to reasonable doubt, but it was a body blow for sure. if Donald Trump, I don't know why they're only calling to the stand or trying to call to the stand this expert on campaign finance laws. First of all, I don't think that's really appropriate because the judge is the only one who's supposed to talk about the law, not an expert or anybody else. The judge is the expert on the law. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to talk about, but I don't know why they're not calling Alan Weisselberg or Keith Schiller. Those are the two that if Donald Trump is truly innocent, and all of these things are lies, then call them to the stand and have them prove your innocence. That could be fatal to the whole case, but they're not calling them. And who's going to notice that? The jury. And so I think that's going to speak volumes to the jury, even more than if Donald Trump does not testify in his own defense. But like I said, this is what happens when there's cross-examination. It's just hard, the hearing that Matt Gaetz says, Mr. President, stand back and stand by. It just makes me sad. It makes me sad that this is where our country's going, that we are moving to a place where white supremacy is king, and that we are going to reelect potentially this person who believes in that sort of thing. I don't know. Today was a hard day, and I need the Popakian Ben Meiselas optimism, because I have to say today was a hard day.
Look, the Popakian optimism, I can't speak to. The Meiselas optimism is not just random kind of optimism. Like, I don't look. Ari Melber thought it was good judgment to have Michael Avenatti on 3 weeks ago take shots at Michael Cohen. Right? I mean, just think about that. There's clearly some Ari Melber, Michael Cohen personal history there. Then Cohen said things about Melber. Melber said things about Cohen. And to use a word like bloodbath, that's a narrative. That's a narrative. So you should test the narratives with transcripts. One of the things we've built our media network around is not to say bloodbath and not to use words and superlatives, but to say, show me the transcript. Let's read it together and understand the moment that you're saying is bloodbath. Look, Katie Fang, who's a lawyer who actually practiced, here's what she said. Post-lunch, Blanche continues to be all over the place. He seemed like he was being chronological with the questions, and yet, even if he's following a timeline, the questions he asks are all over the place. It's difficult to understand the point he's trying to make. George Conway, a well-known and well-respected lawyer, says, this examination is just random. The only really good substantive line of examination in the cross was just before lunch, about the October 24th call to Schiller's phone. And even that was not particularly crispy done, although I think the defense scored some points with it. Other than that, I think all in all, the prosecution is way ahead on points with this witness. And everybody who I have in the courtroom was saying something that was consistent with Conway. Sure, did the defense score some points on cross-exam? They should hope they should. That's the point of cross. They use the term, a bloodbath and all of these things. Let's actually look about what went down. Here's how it was described moment by moment. So then moments later, Cohen texted Schiller, Trump's bodyguard, the number of persons who had been placing the harassing phone calls. Todd Blanche, Trump's lawyer, pressed Cohen about his testimony that the call was with Trump about Daniels and not with Schiller about the harassing phone calls. Quote, that was a lie, Blanche said, his voice rising and his tone sharp. And then Cohen's response was, part of it was the 14-year-old, Cohen said, but I know that Keith was with Mr. Trump at the time, and it was more than just this, he said, referring to the calls. Quote, this is now from Trump's lawyer to Cohen. So you had enough time in 1 minute and 36 seconds to update Mr. Schiller about all the harassing phone calls and then update on Stormy Daniels? Blanche asked, growing impatient. Cohen replied calmly that, quote, he always ran everything by the boss immediately. And in this case, it could have been just saying, everything's been taken care of. It's going to be resolved. At that, Blanche lost his cool. That was a lie, he said, his voice now rising to a shriek. You can admit it. And then Cohen said, no, sir, I can't. Repeating that in addition to the conversation with Schiller about the calls, I believe I also spoke to Mr. Trump and told him everything regarding Stormy Daniels was being worked on and it's going to be resolved. Todd Blanche then says, we are not asking for your belief. This jury doesn't want to hear what you think happened. And then there was an objection by the prosecution, and then it was sustained. And so that last question was stricken. That was the interaction. So if people are saying that they used the term that that's a bloodbath, I'm not, again, it's not Meiselas optimism. It's not me trying to frame it a certain way, unless I'm missing something there. That I've seen bloodbaths in courtrooms. I've seen witnesses break down and I've seen witnesses cry. I've seen some great cross exams in my day. I may be missing something there and I may have a blind spot. I don't know, but that doesn't come off to me to use the term that was a bloodbath. But anyway,
well, let me just read you the direct about this, okay? It says, Ms. Hoffinger, can we take a look now at People's 341 in evidence, please? Question. Let's take a look at the call between Mr. Schiller and Mr. Cohen on October 24th at 8:02 p.m. Do you see that call? Yes, ma'am. And was it 8:02 p.m.? Yes. You called Mr. Schiller, or did he call you? I called Mr. Schiller. Do you know why you were reaching out to Mr. Schiller in the evening of October 24th, 2016? Yes. Why? Because I needed to speak to Mr. Trump, and I knew that Keith Schiller was with him. Why did you need to speak to Mr. Trump at that point in the evening of October 24th? To discuss the Stormy Daniels matter and the resolution of it. Now, I think the reason, if had he been better prepped, and somehow realized that there were those text messages, then he could have said, for two reasons, I texted this, but I actually said that, like, just the fact that it wasn't addressed on direct makes it look like an aha moment on cross, according to people in the room. And apparently the way he reacted was quite effective for the defense. That's all. And I'm just, again, we weren't in the room, but that's the direct. And so, it's it's stressful. And this is how it is in trials. This is one of those moments. And you're right, that if he wasn't doing this, he wouldn't be doing his job on cross. And there's going to be a lot of thought about what goes into redirect, the rest of cross, and let's see if there's any defense case or rebuttal case. Again, don't forget, there's no doubt in my mind that they proved that a crime occurred. But is there any doubt? Is there reasonable doubt that Trump was involved? And that's the question. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I suspect the summation is going to be a lot like the opening for the prosecution, which is you don't need to believe Michael Cohen. He is really, there's so much evidence linking it to Trump that I'm not sure this is even fatal to the case, because even if this is as big of a blow as some people think it is, and it somehow, knocks out credibility, whatever, I don't think it's fatal to the case. I think the case has been proved. To me, the case has gone in so strong, and there's so much evidence, direct and circumstantial, linking it to Trump, that I am not necessarily going to say this is fatal to the case. That's where I am. But look, it's just the case has gone so well that today was a little bit of a disappointment. What can I say?
But here's the thing, Karen. The term bloodbath equates to fatal. Right? When bloodbaths occur, people die. That's fatality. So when the language bloodbath is used versus did the defense score some points, I can concede, sure, the defense may have scored a point there. Maybe Cohen wasn't as prepped as I don't know. But in the swing of things, that point that they scored, why is Ari Melber elevating that point that I read the transcript as bloodbath versus, you know, look, they scored some points. I don't think it's fatal, but it's that term. That term is packed with so much meaning. And I
Yeah, it
just
didn't
think
seem like a bill. It definitely doesn't feel like or seem like a bloodbath. I agree with you. That's sort of a that's an overstatement. I think the trial's been a bloodbath for Trump, to be honest with you. Like that's, it's gone really, really, really well. Like it's shocking to me. Put aside just the crime. It is shocking to me that former president of the United States is somebody who, you know, works with David Pecker and the National Enquirer to promote fake news. I mean, it's just outrageous, and how the American people aren't outraged by that, and how he's, holds himself out to be this family man and, this person who cares about his wife when he's cheating on his wife with Karen McDougal for a year, and then cheating on her, who was in love with him, with a porn star. I mean, he's just not a good person. And the evidence of the grabbing women by the private parts came out. I mean, just a reminder of really the type and quality of person he is. It's just so offensive. And so, to me, that's the bloodbath. And I don't know why people aren't more outraged by that, by what has come out here. That and frankly, Michael Cohen is an outrage of how he conducted himself on behalf of Donald Trump. And I think he would say that today too. The things he did for Donald Trump, and the things you have to do to get in the good graces of Donald Trump, it's disgusting and it's horrible. And so that has come out loud and clear. And the fact that the American people aren't more outraged, the fact that he's up in any polls, not to get political here, that's what's upsetting to me. And so the reason I can't believe, the reason I'm slightly deflated today is because, any chance that this case is going to have reasonable doubt is just shocking and unbelievable to me, given who this man is and what type of person he is and the type of people he attracts, saying, Mr. President, stand back and stand, but we're standing back and standing by. Somehow we're embracing this as a nation, that this is who we are as people and this is who we're going to elect as president. It's just, I actually can't believe it. And it's outrageous to me.
Well, Karen, that's why we're creating our own media network that speaks the truth, right? That's why we're reading the transcripts. That's why we're not jumping to superlatives. And that's why we don't use the terms like bloodbath here. Notice, by the way, the media does not use, to your point, they do not use the term bloodbath when all of this evidence is coming out about Donald Trump's disgusting behavior. Every day. You want to talk about the real bloodbath? It's what Donald Trump is doing. You want to talk about a real bloodbath? It's Matt Gaetz saying, stand back, stand by. But the media to that is like, whatevs. Oh, Matt Gaetz just citing the Proud Boys as MAGA Republican Congress members parade themselves and violate a gag order. No, let's not call that a bloodbath against our great Constitution. Let's call some minor point during Michael Cohen's testimony about a text message or a phone call where Cohen may have talked about two topics. Let's Ari Melber push out and call that a bloodbath. Let's run with that narrative. Then we could have Don Jr. and Eric repost Ari Melber and repost Anderson Cooper and push the narratives. And Karen, you talk about polls, the same people who are pushing these bogus BS narratives that don't match the transcript. It's the same CNN people who are pushing these polls on us in this self-fulfilling loop. It's like, just report on the facts. By the way, if CNN, if you want to call what Cohen did a bloodbath, which it was not, then do your damn job and call this other stuff a bloodbath. MSNBC, Ari Melber, call all this other stuff a bloodbath as well. Don't hold back your language when you're talking about Donald Trump because you're scared of him or you want access. But then when Cohen says, oh, I don't know, I may have discussed two topics, bloodbath, bloodbath. My point is, we need to take a step back here and we need to focus on the facts. We need to focus on the transcripts. We need to read the material. And the one thing that I always preach here is not let's have hopium. Let's not be blindly optimistic. It's bring me the transcript, bring me the exhibit, show it to me, and then let's people use the words and characterize it. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting all.
No. I mean, look, after court, Donald Donald Trump walked out and after court, did his usual whatever, this person says this person says that, on and on and on. And then he said something that I thought was really, again, a disgrace, that nobody's going to call it out. Nobody's going to hold it against him. But he says, everyone uses NDAs. Everyone does. NDAs. I use NDAs to protect your family. There, he was admitting that he paid her off. Okay, he slept with her and paid her off. He admits that he does that. But yet somehow the Christian right is going to all support him. It's okay. Cheats on his wife. It's okay. It's no big deal. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just don't understand. Sometimes it just makes me feel like, I'm just out of touch, because I don't quite understand how it is that this is the man who we all are potentially going to have as our president.
We don't have to potentially have it, but we don't. And I think what's discouraging to you is that there are these narratives out there where the media both sides it, and it is a relentless amount of, the media doesn't cover that Trump says the late great Hannibal Lecter. That's a one-day story. I mean, Karen, I don't want to get political, and I got to start political beatdown in a moment, but the stock
you are
market,
right. You're right. No, but thank you for the free therapy and for making me feel better, Ben.
But look, the stock market. Remember when Trump was in office? Every day the media would say the stock market hit 25,000. Every day we'd get a front page story, right? The stock market just passed 40,000. Where are all of those stories? It's just a blip. President Biden does good things. The media doesn't cover it at all. Donald Trump gives these speeches where 99% of it's incoherent, praising Hannibal Lecter, talking about how, he plays the J6 anthem. They don't want to cover that. But then President Biden wears like comfortable shoes, which, by the way, I wear the same shoes as my running sneakers. And it's like, let's make that a front page story. It is absurd. Anyway, Karen, I appreciate there should be closing arguments next week. I got to start political beatdown in a moment as well. We're gonna go over there. We have our special co-host there as well. So if you're in this chat, go to political beatdown tonight at 8 Eastern. 5 Pacific, we'll be hosting the Brother podcast live as well on the Midas Touch podcast, the Midas Touch podcast with me and my brothers. Check that out. We'll break down everything that went down as well. And you could tell I'm a little worked up today purely because, Karen, those narratives are out there. And I see even that, when you're not in court and how those narratives can impact us all, it bugged. Now, I just think I want to go to the transcript. I want to see the data and then go from there. But we'll chat soon. Karen, thanks for leading our coverage. We appreciate it. I'm going to start political beatdown with our special guest, and we'll do that for about a half hour there, and then we'll go from there. Karen, thanks for everything.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.